There are lies, damned lies, and Scottish National Party claims. In 2013, Nicola Sturgeon said the independence referendum was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. She was obviously referring to the lifetime of a mayfly, because as soon as she lost she demanded another one. Then there's the SNP press office approved claim quoted by every renter-mouth SNP MSP that 65% of Scottish manufacturing is sold in the EU. Which sounds great until you learn manufacturing amounts to a less than 10% of the Scottish economy, the other 90% being massively dependent on trade with Great Britain, with the USA in second place. She doesn't tell you that very often, does she? This is the same EU, by the way, which there is almost no way Scotland is ever joining. Not while Catalonia is threatening to secede from Spain. Madrid will always veto it, and that's before we get to Scotland's colossal deficit. Then there's the routinely trotted out trope that no credible source would suggest a separatist Scotland would be kept out of the common travel area, i.e. free movement within the rest of the UK. This too is a lie. Border checks would become mandatory pretty much along Hadrian's Wall, if only to count the number of Scotland's brightest and best flooding south. Scotland would see a brain drain on an unprecedented scale as the cleverest realized they were now subjects of a tiny lone state with no currency, a colossal deficit, no trade deals, no membership of the EU, and crucially no financial and infrastructure support from the rest of their United Kingdom family. Public services north of the border would collapse in on themselves under the weight of cuts, and taxes would soar, but the numbers still wouldn't add up. In a very short space of time, Queen Nicola would be forced to beg the IMF for a bailout, which she would be unlikely to get, nor would it help, leaving her one other humiliating option: to beg to rejoin the Union. But none of this matters one jot, because the SNP has now become more of a cult than a political party, supporters having long since drunk the Kool-Aid. None of the facts matter anymore. People have been so battered by Nicola's mass media messaging day in day out that they have turned off their critical faculties. There is no longer any point in rational argument. The cult of personality and the SNP pseudo-religion of independence has won. The same way you cannot argue with a fundamentalist Christian or Muslim that there seems scant little evidence of a man upstairs, you cannot argue with an SNP convert that there seems scant little evidence Scotland would be in any way better off. Gordon McCallum, Managing Director, PW Hall Limited, Kirkintilloch, an actual successful Scottish businessman, was so worried about independence he felt minded to write to the Herald saying, the SNP's Brexit-based economic justification for another referendum on independence is bogus. Whilst Scottish manufacturing businesses trading internationally may have been able to cope with the single issue of Brexit, I suspect strongly that many would be unable to survive the multiple challenges of Scottish independence. But Nicola, and her credulous acolytes, apparently don't care what business thinks. And so, despite the fact that whatever she says Ms. Sturgeon has not in any way secured a mandate, no one voted Green because of their stance on independence. Scotland should now be given a second referendum. There are only 3 possible outcomes. The most likely is that when faced with reality, rather than puffed out chest posturing, enough Scots will vote to remain in the Union, thus relegating Nicola Sturgeon to poor man's Alex Salmond status. Or, they win independence and we wait for inevitable collapse and a once proud Scotland holding out the begging bowl to Boris. Or they all live happily ever after in a land where the streams flow with whiskey, everyone has a well-paid job for life, drugs are eradicated and no one ever has to wait for healthcare. I know which option my money is on.